JJ Jinx!
Truck stop!
Good day to you all. It is June, which means pretty soon I'm going to get another Smoky Mountain Knife Works Officer's Care Package. And I'll say goodbye to all 5 of these pocket knives from last month. 5 is quite a lot of knives, so I figured I would make this separate video where I could say what I want to say about them, and whoever cares can watch it. And then when the package comes in, I can just go straight to it, and you won't have to hear any of this stuff. You won't have to fast forward through it. It's just a separate video that you don't have to watch at all. I've carried each of these enough that I feel like I can say what I want to say and then be ready to move on. I'm going to start off with the Cold Steel Kudu. I actually did carry and use this for a few days. I very quickly realized that an office/laboratory setting isn't really appropriate for this kind of knife. It's made as a bushcrafting knife. It's made for field use. Doesn't really have a place breaking down boxes or cutting human hair and all the other wacky things that I do at my work. So I stopped carrying it. I didn't want to be, unfair in my review of it because it wasn't the proper application. That being said, I did have a little bit of problem when it came to stabbing through things, like a thick plastic bag to kind of do one of those, to cut things open, because the tip is actually kind of a little bit dull. But you know what, for slicing and, bushcrafting and stuff like that, I don't think that's such a big deal. That being said, it is a sub $10 knife. Very reputable company. I'm absolutely certain that it's superbly well made. I just couldn't really give it a fair review, but I do like it. I love the look, and it was a little odd carrying such a huge knife in my pocket that, didn't have a clip on it. So there's that too. Like when you sit down, depending on how it lands in your pocket, it might make itself noticed. So yeah, but as a bushcrafting knife, maybe you don't carry it in your pocket. You carry it in something else, a backpack or whatever. So that's all I really wanted to say about that knife. I like it, but I didn't really get to use it properly, and that's okay. Next, I would like to talk about this Smith & Wesson knife. The M&P, forgot the model number. Oh, there it is, SWMP10. My first impression of this knife was it's big and ugly. And it still is, both of those things. But I actually had a pretty positive experience overall carrying and using this thing. First of all, it's quite a lot bigger than what I'm used to. So I try to kind of push that to the back of my mind because some people prefer big knives. I wanted to give it a chance. A few of the things that impressed me about this knife are, well, first of all, the pivot is actually very smooth. For such a large blade, and for not having any kind of assistance on the opening, with just a little bit of a flick, that huge blade comes swinging out. And the lockup is actually excellent, especially for one of these cheap, super budget options. It feels good when you flick it open. It's got an authoritative thwack, and it's the same when you close it. The thumb stud is way out there, which is great because you don't have to fumble around with it like you do on like the CRKT CEO. It just kind of feels like one of those knives you can abuse it a little bit, and it'll hold up. And you also won't really care because it's cheap and replaceable. Now the look to it did kind of grow on me a little bit. It's sort of a very industrial kind of look. And I never got to really use it for hard use, but for what I did use it for, I found it to be very sharp. It has a very nice and consistent edge on it, and the hand feel, was actually very good. Even for a big knife in my tiny pudgy hand, this works for me. So yeah, this was a diamond in the rough. I did not expect to enjoy this thing as much as I did, but I did. Good. Next, I'm going to move on to the CRKT tuna. It takes a little bit more wrist to open than the Smith & Wesson M&P model here, but that's okay. It's just one of those things I think people might complain about. So this is a knife that I don't think I would ever buy on its own. It's not for me. I don't know if it's for fishing. I just kind of assumed the case. It's called the tuna, you know. But it's a CRKT in the $40 to $50 range, and it's got all of the features that I do expect for that. It's got decorative hardware. It's got the recessed pocket clip with the flathead screws. That's really super nice. It's light, even though this entire scale is all steel, because it's the, frame lock. The other side is all G10, and that really helps to keep the weight down if you can get over the two different colors, which, you know what? I don't mind it. Not with this one. Not with CRKT. They do something about the look of their knives that, I find it acceptable. Maybe it's the combination of the stonewash black and the kind of pastel-ish darker color. I don't know. And then this kind of pseudo-copper stuff going on. It's a nice color combination. It pleases my eye. In terms of use, it's fine. It's a sharp CRKT blade. And it also has one of those over-travel protection bar things built into the frame lock. So that's there. I don't know if over-travel is such a big problem that you need that. Maybe you do. I don't know. I've not, experienced anything bad from an over-travel on a frame lock. But, I don't know. Maybe if that is a thing, you don't have to worry about it with the tuna. But I got another knife from CRKT that came from an older Smoky Mountain Knife Works package, and that's the Overland. I liked this knife more, and it was a similar price point. But I bring this one back out just to say that the things that people complained about with this one, I feel like the same things will be complained about with this one. And that was the steel. So Smoky Mountain Knife Works put this one out in D2, so, that was kind of addressed. But not so with the tuna. This is the, I think, 8CR13 MOV. So it's that steel. And the pivot. This was on Teflon spacers, and so is this one. So if I did really like this knife, I would have liked to have had it with phosphor bronze or perhaps bearings, but nope, you get white Teflon, or maybe nylon. I'm actually not sure. Still opens great, still closes great, but for 40 or 50 bucks, I'd like it to be a little bit less stiff, That's just my preference. And so, yeah, I brought up the Overland because people said the same thing. Other than that, these knives seem pretty similar price point-wise. They're just different shapes, I guess. Next, we got to talk about the Sodbuster Jr. from Case. Oy, this was a big disappointment, I'm sorry to say. I do like the basic color. I like Case. I like Sodbusters, but I just couldn't use this one too much. There's a bit of a manufacturing flaw. When I first opened it, I probably noticed there's a gap there. And that gap is there because the pivot bolt was just not squeezed in enough, and it leaves a lot of blade play, and I just wasn't comfortable with that. It just didn't feel good. If that blade play wasn't there, I'd be like, yeah, I got a Case Mini Sodbuster, and it's great, but it's just having that blade play and that gap, it just kind of I didn't like it. I even tried to hammer it down some more. You see that mark right there on the I was like, maybe if I just smash it with a hammer a few times, I can cinch it up a little bit. But I didn't want to, hit it too hard, because then I just might break it. So I gave up, and it just stopped carrying it. But when I did use it, the blade was freaking great. It's really thin. It slices very well, and it was small enough to fit into the 5th pocket of my jeans. So for all those reasons, I gotta say, I liked it. But, no. Last but definitely not least is the SOG Fielder. I was a little bewildered when I first got this out of the package because, well, it said something strange about the direction of the grain on the wood. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? It also just kind of has a cheap look to it. Maybe I've been in too many truck stops and I've seen knives that have this kind of polished metal finish with wood together, just being absolute crap knives that I love, but wouldn't love to use. The SOG Fielder, I gotta say, completely changed my mind on this one. The harpoon style blade just kind of looks neat, and every experience I've had with this has been positive, except one. And here's the story. The lockup is perfect, and even though it's on Teflon spacers, the pivot is super smooth. The hand feel really surprised me. This feels great, even though there's like not much to it. Maybe less is more in this case. Especially I appreciate these ramps that kind of flare up here down at the end, because my thumb just kind of rests on it and gives me, I don't know, gives my thumb a place to go. And that's it. It's a perfect size for me. And the liner lock is really well done too. Those teeth don't protrude very much, and they're not that sharp, so when you're holding it, even though it's jamming into your finger, you don't really feel it. And that's great, because I've had knives where you totally feel it, or it sticks out way too far, so that when you go in to disengage the liner lock, you never miss. The pocket clip, well, I guess I have two things to complain about. It's a little bit too loose, I feel like. It's just, when I put it down into my pocket, I kind of feel like it might fling out of my pocket if I, like, walk by something that grabs it, That's how loose this thing is. I would have liked that a little bit tighter. That's not something I normally complain about. I actually complain when it's too tight. And I know there are a lot of people out there who will only carry knives that have tight pocket clips. This one's just, on the opposite end of that spectrum. So my other complaint is the distance the thumb stud is from the bolster of the knife. It's pretty close. I do sometimes just completely miss it or get a partial opening like the CRKT CEO. But if you just kind of got to get used to it. Instead of just flicking your thumb outward, you'll kind of dig down a little bit first, and then you'll get it every time. But sometimes I'll just forget, and oop, didn't get it. Oop, oh, there we go. If not for that, I'd say this is a great knife. Now, I kind of balked at the price point when I first saw it. I think it was like $25, and I'm like, this looks like a $5 gas station knife. But I really like it. I appreciate it. This one and the Smith & Wesson M&P surprised me the most out of this package. Now, if I had to pick one as my desert island knife, the one that, well, I guess this one would be best for that. But you know what I mean. Everyday carry forever. It's the only one. I think I'd have to go with the SOG Fielder. It's the best out of the lot. And that's all I have to say about that.